Primordial Radio.
Welcome back to Primordial Radio. My name is Pete Bailey. Today, delighted to be joined by Charlie Simpson, Busted, Fight Star, and so much more, dude. How you doing?
How are you, mate? Good to speak to you.
Great to speak to you. And I was thinking of our last encounter. It's been a long, long time. I had to go back into ancient history. So I first sort of crossed paths with you, and you won't remember this whatsoever, but certainly not crossing paths, but maybe the gigs. Now, I was just starting out in the music industry. I was sort of learning the ropes at a live music venue called Central Station in Wrexham, doing crewing and sound engineering. And so that was the last time that we sort of really crossed paths, and it was in about 2008. I was like, good Lord. And I look back at those gigs with such fondness and I think to myself, wow, Fight Star playing in those small venues. But, how do you look back at those days?
Man, I love those days. You know, I remember Wrexham Central Station well. It was a really good venue. I think the first time we played there was with a band called Your Code Name Is Milo. Do you remember them?
Oh, I think that might have been just before my time, actually, because it was on the second gig that I got to know you at Central. Yeah.
No, so I think maybe we even supported them in like 2006, and then we headlined there, I think 2008, you're right. Man, we just had a lot of fun playing those kind of shows. And, I feel like we really cut our teeth like that. And there was just a real energy in the room, like when you can have people crowd surfing and just like going nuts. So yeah, I love those kind of venues.
There's a different feel, isn't there? There's a lot of talk at the moment about that Green Day show that's happening at the ballroom. Cause it's like, I think they're playing Electric Ballroom and actually a lot of people they're playing the ballroom. I didn't know that. Yeah, it's which I think is about 1,000 cap, and it's 96 quid a ticket. But actually, a lot of people were saying, you know what, I'd rather pay 96 quid to see Green Day in a venue that small versus an arena. And I kind of get it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's cool for us because we're the reverse of Green Day. Like we play those shows all the time, and like to play an arena is huge for us. For Green Day, he probably gets bored playing arenas, so he wants to play a small show.
Yeah.
I think it's what you're used to, what you're not used to, and I think like for us, we've obviously got this Wembley show coming up in March, and I just think it's going to be that'll be a real moment for us because that's by far our biggest headline show, so we're super pumped. But then I love festival shows. I love tiny little, I mean even smaller than Wrexham. Like we played shows like at the Water Rats in London, which is like 200. There's just a vibe. The thing that you got to be careful of with the really small ones is that they have a good sound system. Because I think that's the only thing that you have to deal with.
Once you get below that 200 cap mark, it's like it's just a vocal PA.
Exactly.
All you hear is drums and vocals.
Exactly. It's basically just drums.
Yes.
So unless you're gonna use an electronic drum kit, I think it's just gonna be cymbals. But I think that you definitely get different energies and you take different things away. I love Brixton Academy is awesome, and that sort of that they're the kind of venues I grew up watching bands in. Like the Cambridge Corn Exchange, and that sort of 1,500 to 2,000 cap is a real sweet spot, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Coco, one of my favorite venues.
Yeah, Coco's fantastic. That's been redone, hasn't it?
It has. I've not been to it since it's been redone, but I'm itching and dying to get back. 'Cause I'm based in Manchester now, but itching to get back. So we've got to talk about Fight Star then. So, you mentioned the fact that you got this Wembley show. It's going to be taking place 22nd of March next year. Last time you played live was 2015. So was this just like, an itch that you had to scratch? And what was the thought as well, thinking, we're not just going to come back. Well, screw it, let's come back and do Wembley. Like, how does all of that come about after 8 years?
The reason I just got off and walked around is because I had my son. I think I thought he was about to burst in.
Honestly, that's fine. My cat's usually scratching at the door. We're warts and all here at Primordial.
I think my wife's probably trying to call him back. It basically came about. We played our last show in. Did you say 2015?
Yes. Yeah.
And then Al had his 40th birthday party. At the beginning of this year. It's the first time we've really been in the same room together for quite a long time, maybe even a couple of years. And it was at his parents' house, and his parents basically have this barn in Northampton next to their house. And that's where Fight Star started. Like, he had this thing called the Bloom Room. He used to be in a band at school called Bloom, I think. And they basically set this room up which has, a PA and stuff. And like, it's such a special place for us because we used to spend so much of our time there just writing. Before the world really knew who Five Star was, or, we just had that time to spend together writing music, and most of Granification was written there. And so that was a real sort of nostalgic day for us. And I feel like that subconsciously set the wheels in motion of us doing something together again, because we did sort of joke about it, saying, it's been 20 years, we should do something. And then we sort of, went our separate ways again. And then my agent rang me and said, we've had an offer for Five Star to play Wembley. And I almost fell off my chair. I was like, I think you must have the wrong venue. Like, that doesn't sound right. And he said, no, I'm serious. Like, I think, there's a real offer, and, they think you can do it. And so I just rang the guys and was like, okay, this is crazy, but, we had this offer, and we were just really taken aback by it, because as I say, we've played some amazing shows, and I know that we've managed, luckily, to sort of garner a very loyal fan base, and a fan base that doesn't really go away. Like, it's always in the background. There's this one guy on Twitter who has the handle ComebackFS, and he's over the last like 5 years, he's tweeted 1,500 times.
Wow. And he survived the changes of Twitter to stick with it as well.
I know. It was so crazy. I was just so pleased for this guy. Like, when we announced this show, because I was like, and then he changed it to Five Star Came Back. And I was just like, that kind of loyalty, isn't easy to find, and I feel so lucky that we have fans like that. And I see it, I get asked almost daily when Five Star are going to do stuff again. So that's always going on the background. But I still, to be offered to do Wembley Arena was a real, sit up moment. And so I'm just really looking forward to really sharing the night with those kind of fans, who have stuck by us this whole time. And, we have been on quite extended breaks. So I think it's going to be a real special time.
And has this set the wheels in motion for anything more on the Fight Star front, or is it just a case of let's do the Wembley show and see where we go from there?
Yeah, I think there's a big difference between playing a show and doing new music, because playing a show, you can carve out the amount of time that is needed to rehearse for it, and it can all be done relatively easily. Bear in mind we do have other things going on. We all have a lot of projects that we're involved in. So I think to embark on a new album would mean us all saying that that's what we're going to focus on for the entire year. Or do you know what I mean? Like, the last Five Star album is my favorite album. Like, if we were going to do something again, I love that record. Like, I think it's one of the things I'm most proud of in my career. And I think that if I'm going to go back and do another one, then it has to be the same or better. Do you know what I mean? Like, in my mind. So I feel like it's just not a small undertaking. People think, people release new music all the time, and with Spotify and stuff, it makes it easier to do. But I just think that there is an emotional connection to writing music that you need to be in the right headspace for. And I think that when the time is right, I'm sure we will do it. But I think for now, we just want to sort of focus on this show and sort of treat this in isolation, really.
And it's not like you've been inactive as a musician. Obviously, I'm speaking to you as you're there in your studio today. You've been doing lots of solo stuff, collaborations. And of course, you went back with Busted for quite a period. And I was wondering, what was that like? Was it sort of less pressure and more fun the second time around with Busted?
Yes, definitely. And the main reason for that is that we it's all on our terms now, like this last campaign we've done, we went in and re-recorded all the old songs and sort of, we got to work with some awesome bands, some bands that we love. And I feel like the whole thing just feels very different to what it felt like back then when I was a 16-year-old kid, basically. And, obviously there were a lot of things going on at that time that were out of my control. And like, when it comes to, when you're on a major record company, there's always going to be things that you know the story, and I feel like now we are totally in control of our own destinies, and that makes a big difference, So I definitely feel like this last tour, the 20-year anniversary tour we did with Busted was the best tour we've done, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It was awesome. So, and what's cool is that I can now do a 5-star show, and everyone is totally cool with that. Do you know what I mean? Because like 20 years ago, that would have been a lot harder. But I think the music industry has progressed to such a point where I feel like the tribal divides have come down a bit. You know, like you got Bring Me the Horizon doing a song with Ed Sheeran, you got there's just a lot more cross-genre stuff going on. I think there's a lot of things about the music industry that have changed that I don't like, and I think are negatives to what it used to be like. But I think one massive positive is that I guess because the streaming generation it's so playlist based that you have a lot of people just constantly listening to vastly different things all in one go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've always kind of thought of it as a bit of an analogy. Music used to be like food. You'd maybe pick up certain pieces of food, little bits here and there, whereas now it's water. It's ubiquitous. And the thought of it not being there on tap all the time is alien to the generation that has been born with Spotify and all the streaming
Absolutely
services.
right. That's true, man, yeah. Because obviously you needed to go to a shop to buy a CD and you needed a physical thing to put that CD in and listen to all the rest of it. Now, you're right. It's a continuous thing now.
It is. And I kind of think as well, like, because when you first did Fight Star in the rock world, there was definitely, controversy and lots of gatekeeping and all of that sort of thing. I feel like if a similar sort of thing happened today, I feel like you'd have or somebody else would have sort of no opposition to that, or minimal.
I completely agree with you. And that's what's so funny. If I did Fight Star now, I don't think that anyone would bat an eyelid. If I'd come out and done it now. Do you know what I mean? So that just shows how much has changed in 20 years. But, I part of that story, a part of our story and sort of overcoming that back then is something that I am, it's a big part of us. It's a big part of what brought us together as a band. And I'm immensely proud of it. I think that a lot of people said that it couldn't be done back then. And, the fact that we managed to garner the audience that we did and have support from not only the rock press, but a lot of our peers, other bands that we love taking us out on the road. And, I look back on those days and think, actually we managed to triumph over adversity,
Absolutely. And I feel like you're in a really, really unique position to get a totally different perspective when it comes to the world of the mainstream and the world of the rock. I speak to a lot of folks within the rock world, not so many from the pop world, but the conversation is always centered around rock, and struggling to break out into the mainstream. And I was wondering if I could get your thoughts of what do you make of rock music's relationship with the mainstream today? Because it feels like there's a little bit of a disconnect that is taking place between mainstream audiences and rock music today.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really interesting question, man. And something we were talking about yesterday with the Fight Star guys. I think that rock music's relationship with sort of the commercial realm has always been slightly strange, because the whole idea of the reason people, I think feel drawn to rock music is that they don't have to what's the word, adhere to the current trends. You know what I mean? Like the whole idea of, especially metal music, is that you are individualistic and you can sort of not have to follow the trends, and that's part of what makes the genre and what makes the identity of the fans. But I think that what happened in 2005 was that rock became mainstream, as in Mike M and Fall Out Boy, and that was pop music at the time. It literally was. It was all over the radio.
And not just you say all over the radio, not like rock stations, but it was, Heart, Capital, the really poppy stations.
Yeah, it was A-list Radio 1 all the time. That's what they played. So I think that was a slightly new time for rock music, because it sort of found its way into the glare of the mainstream. I think it's sort of slipped back now, because I think electronic music very much took over, and so it's sort of took a back step a bit. But the great thing about rock music is that it always has its fan base, because it exists outside the mainstream. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't depend, like pop music depends on the mainstream, because without the mainstream, it doesn't really have a cult following outside of it. So I mean, it is the mainstream. So I feel like you just look at Download Festival. It will sell out every year, regardless of if a band headlining is on the radio or not. Do you know what I mean? Most of them aren't on the radio. So I feel like that's really awesome. And I feel like that's something that is so strong because I think not every genre has that. Do you know what I mean? That absolute diehard fan base.
Yeah, and I was saying on our weekly podcast that we do here on The Session this week, a similar sort of thing where I was like, I think rock has got to such a sort of size now as a niche genre that we don't even like rock. I think rock music and rock fans, we don't really need to even concern ourselves too much about trying to break into the mainstream. It's like, if it happens, that's kind of cool. But actually, we're doing just fine. We're doing okay on our own now.
Yes, I agree. And you know what? Everything is cyclical anyway. Like, I feel like guitars will make their return at some point, and it's happened like that for the last 70 years. But the weird thing is, the thing that I sort of wonder is rock's relationship with streaming, because I find that a lot of streaming is focused more around pop and dance and electronic music, and I don't know why that is. Maybe I don't know.
I feel like streaming's diminished the album format a bit. And I don't know if there's anything the streaming services can do to enhance an album listening experience online. But yeah, it feels like singles is definitely the order of the day, and it's harder to get people to be engaged with an album in full now.
Yes, and I think, and as I say, I think that for me that's one of the sad parts of the changing music industry. But there are because that as an artist, I like to build a body of work that is coherent and the sort of. It's one piece, so it's one picture that you're looking at. Whereas if you split it all apart and then just have different tracks going on different playlists, that's not really how I grew up to intend to make music. But then on the flip side of it, there are so many positives, because it means that now, so during the pandemic, I built a recording studio. Like, I can make music, and then I have a direct resource to market, which I didn't have back then. And it means that I'm connected to my fans in a different way. And I think that when we first came out, you had to be on a record company. Bands had a tough time. You had to be seen by the right person just to get a chance to release an album.
And if you rub someone the wrong way, that was it, Well,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like now you really can sort of forge your own path, which is fantastic.
It is. You mentioned Download Festival. I was wondering, what were your thoughts on the announcement yesterday, if you saw it? Because it was Fall Out Boy, Avenged Sevenfold, and Queens of the Stone Age headliner.
What's interesting is I feel like Download have sort of moved themselves into the position where they are the sort of bastion of rock festival. Do you know what I mean? I think Reading sort of moved slightly more towards the centre. So, this year's the lineup just gone with Download was absolutely phenomenal. Hopefully they'll keep that going.
I think they will. Dude, it has been such a pleasure to speak today, and very much looking forward to the show in March of next year. Wembley Arena, 22nd of March, and who knows, if the juices get flowing, that new music will come. But we don't have new music at the moment, so I'd like to talk to you about an older track. And, this was the song that kind of sort of switched me on to you guys, because when I first heard this, I was sort of coming out of my metal elitism phase. I was maybe 17, 18 years old, and I'd really got into bands like Slayer, Pantera, and I was a hardened metal fan. But, things change and evolve over time. And, of course, I think maybe when I first came across Fightstar, I might have been one of those people that was skeptical because you came from the pop world. But this track, Floods, was the one that sort of really made me turn my head and go like,
that's so easy. I would
actually this is amazing. I'm being a dick.
That's so interesting. I wouldn't have thought that would be the song. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but when that came out, that was the one that sort of made me rethink my thoughts at the time. Very, very young. But I was just wondering, how do you look back on the track Floods now, or all these years later?
So Floods is a really interesting one, because we wrote that in that barn I was telling you about, in our house, and I'm not really a piano player. Like, I sort of find my way around the piano. So I remember just tinkering around for a while and writing that riff and really liking that. And then that was very much just born out of the situation of us being in a rehearsal room together. And, a lot of people don't write that way anymore because of modern technology, but I think just being in a room and messing around, you can find some really cool stuff. So we wrote that, and then I remember the label really loved it, so they wanted to make it a single. But it's weird. Like we rarely play it live because I don't really like playing piano on live.
Oh, bring it back, man! Bring it back.
Yeah. A few people have said they want us to play it at Wembley, so I think we might have to.
Well, longer set times, big show.
Yeah. But I it's weird. Like, I feel like of all the songs we did, that sits outside Fight Star the most. It's almost like that sort of could have been another band. You know what I mean? Like it's quite different to everything else we've done. But saying that, I do love it. I actually want to go listen to it now because I haven't heard it in ages.
I was listening to it as I was getting ready for our chat today. So yeah, it was great to go trips down memory lane. Charlie, thank you so much for your time today. Best of luck with the Wembley show, and it's been lovely to catch you up.
Nice one.
Primordial Radio.